scandal. Sources claim Jasmine's return wasn't a quiet one. It was bold, strategic, and timed to perfection. After months of silence following the birth of her second child, she resurfaced with a glow-up, a message, and what many believe is a hidden agenda. Was this about closure? Or was this about reopening wounds that never healed? The moment her name started trending again, insiders say Kirk froze, because some secrets don't stay buried forever. Meanwhile, Rashida wasn't prepared for the emotional whiplash. Friends close to her say she felt blindsided, not just by Jasmine's return, but by Kirk's reaction to it. Cameras weren't rolling yet, but tensions were already boiling behind closed doors. Accusations flew, old arguments resurfaced, and one late-night phone call reportedly sent the entire household into chaos. Fans are already taking sides, digging through timelines, screenshots, and cryptic social media posts that seem to tell a story nobody wants to say out loud. Is Jasmine hinting at more than just co-parenting? Is Kirk caught between his past and his present once again? And how far will Rashida go to protect her marriage and her peace? Because this time, it's not just about drama. It's about loyalty, legacy, and a family left divided. And if the rumors are true, what's coming next could change everything you thought you knew. Eyes. The moment Jasmine stepped back into the public eye, everything shifted. It wasn't loud at first. No press run, no interview, just one photo. Jasmine standing in soft light, baby carrier on her chest, captioned with a single sentence that fans immediately dissected. "Growth looks good on me." Within minutes, blogs picked it up, fans were shocked, and the comments turned into a battlefield. Some praised her strength, others accused her of stirring the pot. But everyone noticed one thing. Kirk liked the post, and he unliked it less than 10 minutes later. By then, it was too late. Inside Kirk and Rashida's world, emotions ran high. Sources close to the family say Rashida saw the notification pop up on Kirk's phone before he could even explain. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stared at him in silence, the kind that makes a room feel smaller. Kirk tried to brush it off, saying it was nothing, just support for a mother of his child. But Rashida had heard that line before. And this time, it hit different. Behind the scenes, Jasmine wasn't just posting pictures. She was making moves. Quiet ones. Calls to mutual friends. Messages to people who once swore loyalty to Rashida. She wasn't asking for favors. She was reminding them of history. Reminding them of nights they all remembered but never talked about publicly. One friend later claimed Jasmine said, "I'm not here to destroy anything. I'm here to stop pretending." That sentence alone sent chills through everyone who heard it. Kirk, meanwhile, found himself unraveling. The birth of baby number 2 had already shaken him more than he admitted. Not because he didn't love his child, but because it forced him to face a version of himself he kept locking away. He told one close associate that seeing Jasmine again, glowing and unbothered, made him question whether he had really moved forward or just learned how to hide better. Those words never made it to Rashida's ears. At least not directly. Rashida felt the shift before she had proof. Kirk became quieter, distracted. His phone never left his side. Late night, business calls started creeping back into the routine. When she finally confronted him, emotions ran high and the argument escalated fast. Rashida demanded honesty. Kirk demanded patience. Neither got what they wanted. Doors slammed, voices echoed, and by the end of the night, the family was left divided in a way they hadn't been in years. Outside the house, fans were already spinning theories. Screenshots of Jasmine's old interviews resurfaced. Clips of Kirk denying involvement years ago started trending again. Comments flooded in saying things like, "This story was never finished," and "Rashida deserves better." Others blamed Jasmine, accusing her of using the baby as leverage. Jasmine didn't respond. She let the noise build. Because according to people close to her, silence was part of the plan. Then came the message. Not public, not leaked. A direct message from Jasmine to Kirk that reportedly read, "We need to talk." For real this time. Kirk saw it late at night, long after Rashida had gone to bed. He didn't reply right away. He stared at the screen for nearly an hour. Because replying meant reopening a chapter he promised was closed. But ignoring it meant risking something else entirely. The next morning, Kirk left the house earlier than usual. Rashida noticed. She always noticed. She didn't ask questions. She made calls instead. One to her closest friend. Another to a family member who had warned her years ago that unresolved drama always comes back louder. By the time Kirk walked into what he claimed was a meeting, Jasmine was already there. Baby with a sitter. Calm. Prepared. And not alone. A mutual acquaintance sat nearby, someone who knew both sides and who would later say the tension in that room was unbearable. Jasmine didn't yell. She didn't accuse. She laid everything out slowly. The missed calls. The financial disagreements. The promises that were made privately but never honored publicly. She talked about motherhood, about feeling erased, about watching Kirk build a perfect image while she carried the consequences. Kirk tried to interrupt. She shut it down with one sentence. You don't get to control the narrative anymore. Emotions ran high, and for the first time, Kirk realized Jasmine wasn't asking for attention. She was demanding accountability. What Kirk didn't know was that Rashida was already getting pieces of the story from someone else. A text came through mid-conversation. Vague but dangerous. You might want to ask where Kirk really is. Rashida's hands shook as she read it. Not because she didn't expect drama, but because she felt it in her chest. That familiar warning feeling she hated. The one that told her something was about to break. Back at the meeting, Jasmine dropped the bomb. She hinted that there were things she'd kept private out of respect, but respect had limits. She didn't threaten. She didn't need to. Kirk understood. If Jasmine spoke openly, the fallout wouldn't just hit him. It would hit Rashida, the kids, the brand, everything. He left that meeting shaken, promising to figure something out. Jasmine watched him go, not satisfied but ready. That night, Kirk came home late. Too late. Rashida was waiting. No cameras, no audience, just raw emotion. She asked one question. Are you choosing honesty or are you choosing comfort? Kirk didn't answer fast enough. And in that pause, Rashida felt the ground shift beneath her feet. The family was left divided, the past was officially back in the present, and somewhere in the middle of it all, Jasmine was preparing for her next move, knowing this was only the beginning. The silence after that night was louder than any argument. Rashida didn't cry. She didn't throw accusations. She did something Kirk feared more than yelling. She pulled back. The next morning, she moved through the house on autopilot, polite but distant, like someone already preparing for life after disappointment. Kirk noticed it immediately. Her tone was calm, but her eyes were cold. And that scared him. Jasmine, on the other hand, was moving in the opposite direction. She became visible. Not reckless, but intentional. Another post appeared, this time not of the baby, but of her sitting in a studio chair, headphones around her neck, captioned, "Telling my story soon." Fans were shocked. Blogs exploded. Speculation ran wild. Was it an interview? A podcast? A sit-down tell-all? No one knew, but everyone felt the pressure rising. Friends and family were pulled into the drama whether they wanted to be or not. Rashida's inner circle urged her to stay quiet, to protect her peace, to let Kirk handle the mess he created. But peace felt impossible when her phone buzzed nonstop with messages asking if she was okay, if the rumors were true, if Jasmine was about to expose everything. Every message felt like a reminder that her marriage was once again public property. Kirk tried damage control. Calls were made. Favors were requested. He reached out to Jasmine again, asking her to slow down, to think about the kids, to think about the consequences. Jasmine listened, then calmly replied, "I've been thinking about consequences for years." It's your turn. Emotions ran high, and Kirk realized he was no longer in control of the situation. Then came the leak. Not a full story, just a whisper. A clip surfaced online, audio only, allegedly Jasmine speaking about feeling silenced, and used as a secret. The clip didn't name names, but it didn't need to. Fans connected the dots instantly. The comments were brutal. Some defended Rashida fiercely, saying she was the real victim. Others claimed Jasmine had been wronged and deserved her moment. The family was left divided, not just privately, but publicly. Rashida finally broke her silence, but not in the way anyone expected. She posted a simple quote. "Truth doesn't rush. It waits." That single sentence sent shockwaves through the fanbase. Was it a warning? A declaration? Kirk saw it and knew things were slipping further out of his hands. Behind closed doors, Rashida confronted Kirk again. This time, there was no yelling. Just facts, timelines, questions he couldn't dodge. She asked him why Jasmine felt comfortable enough to resurface now. Why this felt planned. Why he seemed more scared of Jasmine talking than of losing his marriage. Kirk tried to explain, but explanations felt thin. Excuses felt familiar. And familiarity had become exhausting. Meanwhile, Jasmine's confidence only grew. Sources say she felt empowered, finally seen. She began meeting with people, discussing opportunities, hinting at projects that would put her voice front and center. She wasn't hiding anymore, and that terrified everyone involved. Then, another twist. A mutual friend revealed to Rashida that Jasmine wasn't acting alone. Someone close to Kirk had been feeding her information for months. Schedules, moods, weak spots. Rashida's heart sank. Betrayal layered on betrayal. She confronted Kirk with the information. He denied it at first, then went quiet. That silence confirmed everything. Rashida felt something snap. Not anger. Clarity. She told Kirk she needed space. Real space. Not a break. Not a pause. Space to think without his influence. Kirk resisted, panicked, pleaded. But Rashida had made up her mind. For the first time, she chose herself without hesitation. As Rashida stepped back, Jasmine stepped forward again. This time, she spoke publicly. Not naming names, but telling a story of motherhood, abandonment, and reclaiming power. Emotions ran high as fans dissected every word. Some praised her bravery. Others accused her of rewriting history. But the damage was done. Kirk watched everything unfold from the sidelines, realizing too late that his attempts to control the narrative had only fueled the fire. His family was fractured, his reputation was shaky, and the two women whose lives he'd entangled were no longer playing by his rules. And just when everyone thought the storm had peaked, a new rumor surfaced. One that suggested Jasmine wasn't done revealing truths. That there was one final detail she'd kept hidden. Something that could change how everyone saw the past. As whispers grew louder, one thing became clear. This wasn't just drama resurfacing. It was a reckoning. The rumor didn't stay a rumor for long. Within 48 hours, blogs were reporting that Jasmine had scheduled a private sit-down with producers. Not to attack, not to scream, but to set the record straight. That phrase alone sent shockwaves. Fans were shocked because everyone knew what set the record straight usually meant in this world. Receipts, timelines, names left unspoken but heavily implied. Emotions ran high across social media as people debated whether this was empowerment or revenge. Rashida tried to stay offline, but the noise followed her everywhere. Even simple errands turned into moments of tension when strangers whispered or stared too long. Friends said she looked composed, but tired, like someone carrying a weight she didn't ask for. Privately, she wrestled with conflicting emotions. Loyalty to her marriage, anger at Kirk, empathy she didn't want to feel for Jasmine, and above all, fear of what the truth might expose. Kirk was unraveling. Sleep became optional. His phone rang non-stop. Business partners wanted reassurance. Family members demanded explanations. He felt trapped between damage control and denial. He reached out to Jasmine again, this time not with warnings but with desperation. He asked her what she really wanted. Jasmine's response was simple: "I want peace. But peace needs truth." That sentence haunted him. Behind Jasmine's calm exterior, there was fire. Years of being reduced to a footnote had hardened her resolve. She confided in a close friend that this wasn't about Kirk anymore. It was about her children growing up knowing she didn't stay silent. Knowing she chose her voice over comfort. That mindset shifted everything. Then came the unexpected twist. A former insider stepped forward anonymously, claiming to have witnessed private conversations years ago that contradicted Kirk's public statements. Nothing was proven, but the implication was enough. Fans dissected every word, every hint. The family was left divided even further as extended relatives began choosing sides quietly. Rashida finally confronted the possibility she had avoided. What if Jasmine wasn't lying? What if parts of the story she accepted years ago were incomplete? The thought shook her, not because it excused betrayal but because it reframed it. She found herself questioning moments she once brushed off. Late nights, vague explanations, promises that never fully landed. When Kirk sensed Rashida pulling further away emotionally, panic set in. He tried grand gestures, apologies, reassurances, but Rashida wasn't moved. She told him she needed honesty without spin. No protecting images, no half-truths. Kirk tried, but every answer felt rehearsed. And Rashida felt her trust eroding in real time. Meanwhile, Jasmine's sit-down date leaked. Anticipation skyrocketed. Fans counted down like it was a season finale. Some accused her of chasing clout. Others said she'd earned the right to speak. Jasmine remained quiet, letting speculation do the work for her. Days before the interview, Jasmine reached out to Rashida directly. Not through intermediaries. A direct message. Respectful. Cautious. She didn't accuse. She didn't demand. She simply said she never wanted to hurt her and understood if Rashida hated her. Rashida stared at the message for a long time before replying. She said she didn't hate Jasmine. She hated lies. That exchange changed something for both of them. Kirk found out about the conversation and felt blindsided. For the first time, he realized the narrative might move forward without him at the center. The women he thought he could manage were communicating without his input. That realization stripped him of the last illusion of control. The sit-down finally happened. No shouting, no theatrics. Jasmine spoke slowly, carefully. She talked about timing, about being asked to stay quiet, about protecting others while sacrificing herself. She never said Rashida's name, but she spoke about respect and misunderstanding. Emotions ran high as viewers read between the lines. Rashida watched the interview alone. No Kirk, no friends, just her thoughts. She didn't feel rage. She felt clarity mixed with grief. Grief for what could have been different. Grief for trust that might never fully return. After the interview aired, Kirk issued a vague statement about growth and accountability. Fans weren't buying it. The comments were relentless. The family was left divided in public opinion like never before. And just when it seemed the story had reached its peak, another revelation loomed. A detail Jasmine hinted at off-camera. Something she said she might share one day, but not yet. Something that could either bring closure or reopen everything. As the dust settled, one truth was undeniable. Nothing would ever go back to the way it was. The aftermath hit harder than anyone expected. The interview didn't just stir conversation, it shifted alliances. People who had stayed neutral for years suddenly felt bold enough to speak. Old friends resurfaced with selective memories. Distant relatives hinted at things they always suspected. Emotions ran high as the story grew beyond Jasmine, Kirk, and Rashida and turned into a full-blown reckoning of past behavior. Rashida became quieter than ever. Not withdrawn, but intentional. She stopped explaining herself, stopped correcting rumors. She focused on her kids, her work, her routine. But inside, she was processing a truth that hurt more than betrayal. She realized she had spent years protecting a version of reality that may never have fully existed. And that realization felt heavier than anger. Kirk tried to regain footing by leaning into public humility. He spoke about therapy, about growth, about accountability, but the words felt late. Fans were shocked at how disconnected he seemed from the emotional gravity of the situation. Every time he spoke, it felt like he was addressing an audience instead of the people he hurt. That disconnect only deepened the divide. Jasmine watched the reaction unfold with mixed emotions. There was relief in being heard, but also exhaustion. She hadn't anticipated how draining visibility could be. Still, she stood firm. When asked privately if she regretted speaking up, she reportedly said no. She said silence had cost her too much already. Then came another twist. A resurfaced text exchange began circulating online, allegedly between Kirk and a third party, discussing how to manage the situation years earlier. Nothing was confirmed, but the implication alone reignited outrage. Fans accused Kirk of manipulation. Others questioned why it took so long for these details to surface. The family was left divided again, this time over credibility. Rashida saw the texts and felt something close. Not her heart, but a chapter. She realized she didn't need every detail to make a decision. She needed peace. And peace didn't require proof, just acceptance. She told Kirk she was done trying to reconcile versions of the truth. She told him she needed distance not as punishment but as protection. Kirk reacted badly. Anger replaced remorse. He accused Jasmine of poisoning everything. Accused Rashida of giving up too easily. That outburst sealed something irreversible. Rashida saw it clearly now. When control slipped, so did accountability. Jasmine stayed out of it publicly, but privately she felt the weight of unintended consequences. She never wanted to be the catalyst for a breakdown. She wanted acknowledgement. Still, she refused to take responsibility for Kirk's choices. She said, truth doesn't destroy. Lies do, and she meant it. Fans continued to debate endlessly. Some rooted for Rashida to walk away for good. Others hoped for reconciliation. Many demanded Jasmine reveal the final detail she had teased. But Jasmine held back. She said some truths needed time. That timing mattered. As weeks passed, the intensity shifted into something colder. Acceptance. The family was left divided, but no longer exploding. Just fractured. Rashida focused on rebuilding herself quietly. Kirk faced consequences he couldn't talk his way out of. Jasmine stepped into a new chapter, no longer hidden, but still guarded. And in the silence that followed, one thing became clear to everyone watching. This wasn't just about scandal. It was about power, voice, and the cost of avoiding truth for too long. The drama may have fueled headlines, but underneath it all was a lesson none of them could escape. Some stories don't end when you want them to. They end when the truth decides it's time. The quiet didn't last. It never does. Just when the narrative seemed to settle into an uneasy calm, another shift rippled through the story. Not explosive, not loud, but calculated. Jasmine reappeared, not online this time, but in rooms that mattered. Industry rooms. Conversations that shaped perception. She wasn't chasing attention anymore. Attention was finding her. People began to notice that opportunities were opening for her. Panels. Collaborations. Invitations to speak about motherhood and reclaiming identity. Fans were shocked by how quickly the tone changed. The same voices that once dismissed her were now calling her resilient, articulate, powerful. Emotions ran high as people questioned whether this rise was overdue or opportunistic. Jasmine didn't explain herself. She let the work speak. Rashida watched from a distance, conflicted in ways she struggled to name. There was admiration she didn't want to admit, and pain she hadn't fully released. Seeing Jasmine step into the light forced Rashida to confront something uncomfortable. The system that protected Kirk for so long had failed both of them in different ways. That realization softened her anger but sharpened her resolve. Kirk, meanwhile, felt himself slipping further into isolation. The calls slowed, the support thinned. People who once defended him publicly now chose silence. He told himself it was temporary. That public opinion always swings back. But privately, he knew something fundamental had changed. This wasn't about one scandal. It was about a pattern catching up with him. In a last attempt to regain footing, Kirk requested a private conversation with Rashida. No cameras, no friends, just them. She agreed, but on her terms. Neutral space, limited time. When they sat across from each other, the air was heavy with everything unsaid. Kirk apologized again, but this time Rashida stopped him mid-sentence. She said she didn't need apologies anymore. She needed accountability without conditions. Kirk struggled with that. Accountability meant accepting that some damage couldn't be undone. The conversation ended without resolution. Not dramatic, just final. Rashida walked away knowing she had chosen clarity over chaos. The family was left divided, but for the first time, she felt steady. Jasmine heard about the meeting later and felt an unexpected wave of emotion. Not satisfaction, not guilt, something closer to closure. She realized that her truth had shifted the balance, even if it didn't heal everything. She shared with a friend that speaking up had freed her, but it hadn't erased the past. It had simply allowed her to stop carrying it alone. Fans continued to speculate about the unrevealed detail. Theories grew wilder by the day. Some claimed it involved finances. Others suggested timelines that contradicted everything known publicly. Jasmine refused to confirm or deny anything. She said mystery wasn't power. Choice was. And she chose restraint. Weeks turned into months. The story slowly evolved from scandal to aftermath. Kirk focused on repairing what he could. Rashida focused on herself and her children. Jasmine focused on building something new. The drama no longer lived in daily headlines, but its impact lingered. Then, quietly, Jasmine made a final statement. Not explosive, not accusatory. She said she was closing that chapter publicly. That she had said what she needed to say. Emotions ran high among fans who felt deprived of a final reveal. But Jasmine stood firm. She said healing didn't require full disclosure. Sometimes it required boundaries. That decision changed the tone of everything. Without constant escalation, the story lost its edge. But what remained was deeper. A lesson about silence, power, and the cost of delay. The family was left divided, but no longer bleeding. And as the spotlight dimmed, one truth settled in for everyone watching. Drama may draw attention, but growth reshapes lives. Jasmine had reclaimed her voice. Rashida had reclaimed her peace. Kirk was left to confront himself without distraction. And while the story began with scandal, it ended with something rarer in this world. Consequence. Time passed, but the tension never fully disappeared. It just transformed. What once felt like chaos became something quieter, heavier. The kind of aftermath that lingers in glances, in pauses, in things no longer said. Rashida settled into a new rhythm, one built on control and distance. She wasn't performing strength anymore. She was living it. Fans noticed the change immediately. Her presence felt firmer, more deliberate, like someone who had stopped asking for permission to exist in her own truth. Kirk struggled with that shift more than he admitted. He had grown used to Rashida being the anchor, the fixer, the one who absorbed storms and kept moving. Now, she wasn't absorbing anything. She set boundaries. She limited conversations. She no longer softened her words to protect his feelings. Emotions ran high every time they interacted, even in the smallest exchanges. Kirk realized too late that what he missed wasn't just the marriage. It was the safety of being shielded from consequences. Jasmine's life continued moving forward, but not without resistance. For every opportunity she gained, there were whispers questioning her motives. Critics accused her of rewriting the past, of benefiting from chaos. She heard it all, but this time, she didn't internalize it. She had learned that being misunderstood was sometimes the price of being honest. That lesson gave her an unshakable calm. Then, unexpectedly, Jasmine crossed paths with someone from Kirk's circle at an event. The interaction was brief but tense. Later that night, messages began circulating claiming Jasmine had smirked when Kirk's name was mentioned. Fans were shocked by how quickly narratives were twisted. Jasmine addressed it subtly the next day, saying, "People project their guilt onto silence." That single line reignited debates all over again. Rashida watched the drama resurface and felt something different this time. Detachment. She no longer felt responsible for correcting misinformation or defending anyone. She had stepped out of the triangle emotionally, even if the world hadn't caught up yet. The family was left divided, but Rashida no longer felt divided within herself. Kirk reached a breaking point when a longtime associate confronted him privately. No cameras, no audience, just honesty. He was told that the problem wasn't Jasmine speaking up or Rashida pulling away. The problem was years of avoiding accountability until it became unavoidable. That conversation shook him more than public backlash ever did, because it stripped away excuses. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Kirk admitted he didn't know how to fix what he'd broken. And for the first time, no one rushed to reassure him. That silence forced him to sit with himself, to reflect without distraction, to understand that growth without acknowledgement was just another performance. Jasmine felt the ripple of that shift even without direct contact. Mutual acquaintances mentioned Kirk seemed quieter, less defensive. She didn't feel triumph. She felt relief. Not because he was struggling, but because the burden of being the problem was no longer placed on her shoulders alone. Fans continued to speculate about a reunion, a confrontation, a final sit-down between Jasmine and Rashida. But that moment never came. And maybe that was the point. Both women had reached a place where closure didn't require face-to-face reconciliation. It required internal peace. Rashida focused on rebuilding trust with herself. She explored new creative paths. She surrounded herself with people who didn't need her to be strong all the time. Fans praised her glow, but those close to her knew it wasn't about appearance. It was about release. As months passed, the story stopped being about scandal and started being about aftermath. About how people live after the truth is spoken. Kirk lived quieter, more contained. Jasmine lived freer, more intentional. Rashida lived steadier, more grounded. The family was left divided, but each person stood on clearer ground. And in the end, what lingered wasn't the shock or the drama. It was the lesson. Silence protects comfort, truth disrupts it, and once truth is spoken, there is no going back. Only forward, changed forever. Even with all that time passing, the story refused to fully fade. It lived on in side comments, in reactions that lingered a second too long, in interviews where names weren't said but meanings were clear. Fans were shocked at how often the past still crept into the present, proving that unresolved history never really disappears. It just waits. Rashida reached a point where people around her noticed a shift from healing to rebuilding. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was redefining what stability looked like on her own terms. She stopped responding to indirects. Stopped reacting to speculation. When asked privately how she felt about Jasmine's continued visibility, Rashida said something that surprised everyone. She said, "I don't need her silence to have peace." Emotions ran high among those who heard it, because it marked the first time she publicly released the comparison. Jasmine, meanwhile, was navigating a different challenge. Success came with scrutiny. Every move was analyzed, every word weighed. She felt pressure to remain perfect, composed, grateful. But perfection wasn't her goal anymore. Authenticity was. She admitted to a close circle that the hardest part of speaking her truth wasn't the backlash. It was the expectation that she now had to be unbreakable. Kirk continued his quiet transformation, though many questioned its sincerity. He attended fewer events, spoke less publicly. When he did speak, his words were measured, careful. Some fans believed he was finally learning. Others felt it was too little, too late. The family was left divided not just emotionally, but ideologically. Forgiveness versus accountability. Growth versus consequence. Then came another unexpected ripple. A mutual friend revealed that Kirk had started therapy seriously, not as a talking point, but as a commitment. No public announcement, no validation, just work. When that information surfaced quietly, reactions were mixed. Some praised the effort, others said it should have happened years ago. Emotions ran high again, proving that healing doesn't always bring relief. Sometimes it brings debate. Jasmine heard about Kirk's efforts and felt conflicted. She didn't feel obligated to respond, and she didn't. Her silence wasn't dismissal, it was boundary. She had learned that she didn't need to participate in every chapter of someone else's growth. That lesson felt powerful. Rashida noticed the shift too, but she didn't rush to reconnect. She understood now that change didn't require reunion. It required consistency. She focused on creating an environment for her children where honesty wasn't hidden behind image. Where strength wasn't confused with endurance. Fans admired that shift, even if they didn't fully understand it. As time went on, the public conversation softened. Outrage gave way to reflection. People began discussing patterns instead of personalities. Power dynamics instead of headlines. The story became less about who was right and more about what happens when truth is delayed. The family was left divided, but the audience was learning. Jasmine eventually addressed her supporters directly, thanking them for listening but reminding them that her story wasn't entertainment. She said it was her life. That sentence stopped many in their tracks. Fans were shocked by how easily drama can blur into humanity. Rashida shared a similar sentiment in a separate moment, saying that sometimes the strongest thing a woman can do is stop explaining her pain. That quote resonated deeply, especially with those who had followed her journey for years. Kirk remained mostly quiet, and in that quiet, reality settled. He wasn't the center anymore. And that, more than anything, marked the true shift. The narrative no longer revolved around protecting him or attacking him. It moved forward without him at the